IGN's Rewind Theater brought to you by Destiny, coming spring 2014. Pre-order now for exclusive access to the beta.
What's up, everybody? Steve Butts here with IGN. I'm joined by my friend Eric Goldman. Hi, Eric.
Hey there, how's it going?
It's going very well, mostly because we've got a new Bryan Singer X-Men trailer to talk about today.
Yeah, this is the one that fans have been waiting for a long time. Days of Future Past, one of the most beloved X-Men stories ever.
So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the comic book series and love this story, wherein what you have is an assassination on the part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants against, in the comic books, Robert Kelly.
Right.
Sparks off the creation of the Sentinels, and the Sentinels go out and round up all the heroes and begin killing them. And the other nations of the world say, look, if you guys cross the border into our country, we're going to launch a nuclear strike. So the X-Men have to go back in the past now and save Robert Kelly. So we're going to back up here and talk about some of these things that we're seeing frame by frame in this trailer. First off, we start off with Professor X's eyeball, right?
Yeah, yep.
Very
and a
iconic.
nice eyeball it is.
Right. But in the comic book series, he's clearly talking to... Kitty Pryde is sort of the main hero of the comic book series.
Yeah.
Obviously, for this franchise, the main character's got to be shifted to Wolverine. Hugh Jackman's back here.
Yeah, it makes sense both because he's the face of the franchise and because timeline-wise, Kitty can't travel into her younger self in the 70s because she doesn't exist in the 70s.
Right. Yeah, so we should mention, I think the new continuity places the future in 2023, and they're going back to 1973. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
So fantastic. So we see here Professor X preparing to send Wolverine back. This looks like Storm in the future continuity being worried about the situation that they're in.
And a lot of glimpses here of all the sort of classic first trilogy X-Men characters, including Ellen Page as Kitty, which is an interesting holdover from the Ratner movie that we mostly don't want to talk about. But he's at least Bryan Singer said he is not ignoring that movie existed, and hence we have a Brett Ratner casted Kitty Pryde here.
Right. One of the moments of pathos in the comic book series is, of course, Colossus and Kitty Pryde are married and they've had kids and stuff, and they feel like, or the big question is, if we go back and fix this, are we still going to be in love? Are we still going to be a family? But maybe in this case, maybe Bobby and Kitty are the ones in a relationship. And
right, since that was kind of how we left off with The Last Stand, as them as a couple.
So let's see here. We've got Rogue is back as well here.
Yep. And then we've got some glimpses of the earlier movies. This is footage from the first couple of X-Men movies.
And it's really interesting because the continuities of First Class and some of the other X-Men movies haven't quite lined up. So what better way to reconcile that than let's just do a big time travel movie and throw everybody together,
right?
And not worry about it too much.
Yep.
So you see here Bobby Drake, Iceman with Magneto here. In the future timeline, it looks like.
And then a bunch of new characters we got.
Yeah,
here.
so let's break this down here. So there are a bunch of fan favorites here. Bishop, obviously, and his storyline in the X-Men comics is he is from a dystopian future, so it makes perfect sense for him to be incorporated into this this franchise at this point.
Yeah, and Bryan Singer was heavily influenced by the animated series from the 90s, which incorporated Bishop into the Days of Future Past storyline. So
that's
I have a feeling we're going to see a little bit of that here as well.
I had forgotten about that. So we have Bishop here. We've got Sunspot. He's a member of the New Mutants in the comic book continuity, but he's here as well. He's sort of a solar-powered hero.
Another actor from The Following, which now has like 3 X-Men connected to it.
Another New Mutant character we're seeing here. This is Warpath. He's a Native American hero, super strong, super agile.
Very connected to X-Force in the comic books.
And then I think this is Blink, right, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, that's Blink, yep.
So lots of new characters in this thing, and this is probably as close as we're going to get to a New Mutants movie in a while, is to have all these characters in one place here.
And it's pretty much presumed, though, of course, that we're seeing a lot of what's probably a small portion of the movie. This is the setup trailer, and it seems like the original cast will probably only be in 10 to 15 minutes, I'm guesstimating there, but I think we're going to kind of quickly see that if there's this war going on, that they have recruited New Mutants along the way who are fighting alongside them. I don't know if they're going to get a ton of screen time, but, they will be established.
Well, the comic series is pretty evenly divided between the timelines. You've got the people in the future fighting the Resistance against the Sentinels, and then Wolverine in the past, in this case, trying to convince the original X-Men, or the 1973 cast of X-Men, hey, this is a real thing. I'm not some lunatic. You need to believe me. And we see a few scenes about that a little bit later in this. So here, obviously, you see... we're guessing this might be Colossus here, this guy with no sleeves.
Yeah, I was trying to tell if that is Wolverine, and it looks different, but I have a feeling that because there's Wolverine and Storm walking together, but I feel like, is that his hair? Or maybe it is because he's got the mutton chops.
He's got the sideburns there, yeah, so that is Wolverine.
And
definitely.
Again, Storm, I think they even said Halle Berry has a little smaller part than she was going to have because she was pregnant, but, hey, they still got her in that costume looking pretty good.
Fantastic, yeah. So I love this. I'm not quite sure where they are. this setting, there's no reference for this in the comic book, sort of where they're at right now.
Right. And again, we hear these references to a war having that, basically this is it. The humanity and the humans, we're guessing, like in the comics, it finally erupted into some kind of war. And yeah, in the comics, there's concentration camps, and it really has gone to that sort of World War II place.
And the big showdown for them in the comics is they go to the Baxter Building, home of the Fantastic Four, which is sort of the Sentinels' headquarters. But of course, that property is not owned by Fox.
It is owned by Fox.
It is owned by
and there's
Fox.
talked about whether they could maybe do, they might bring these universes together as they're rebooting Fantastic Four. I'd be curious if they threw that in as a little Easter egg.
That would be nice.
It would be kind of fun if they did.
I didn't realize that. See, I'm learning on these rewinds as well, which is nice. So here, Professor X is kind of outlining the plan. That to me, this is the most important part of the trailer as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
Bryan
for those of us who are, I'm still a big fan of the first two X-Men movies. Yes, comic book movies evolved since then, but I think they're really integral. I really appreciate what they did for those kind of movies, the tone they set, and I'm excited by him coming back to the franchise with this film. And he produced and had storyboard credit on First Class anyway. Yeah,
which was a great movie.
Yes, it was.
So one of the issues here is Wolverine's got to convince the young Xavier now that this is a real priority, and Magneto here says you're going to need my help. Like, I'm going to have to also be involved in this and convince you.
And if you want to go back to a second to when the door is opening on the young Professor X there. This is we saw a photo from this scene that Bryan Singer was posting a lot of photos during production. That's actually, it's Wolverine in the leather jacket, but that's Beast to his other side, looking human again, which we're curious about because at the end of First Class he was just Beast all the time. Will it be that he can change back and forth? Will it be that he has something to make him look human? Like in the comics they had sort of that image thing to make Nightcrawler and sometimes Beast look human. We're not sure, but that's Nicholas Hoult standing there.
Well, and when he did show up in a cameo in the trilogy, he was human. He played by Kelsey Grammer.
Right, and people say that that's a continuity error, but we've got decades in between. There's a lot of explanations for what could have happened in between those events.
So it's very exciting to see Fassbender and McAvoy back, as well as playing alongside Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart. Mystique played a big role in the comics, and she seems here to not be as included as sort of the leader of the New Mutants when they do have the attack on the president.
Well, because, at this point in the comics, when they did Days of Future Past, Mystique was the leader of the Brotherhood. Right. Of course, in the movies, it's always been Magneto with Mystique kind of his right-hand woman. But I think, now that the movies have established this that she was Xavier's, foster sister, I'm sure we'll see more of that conflict, even though this is about 10 years later with that history between them. And Jennifer Lawrence is such a big star now, I think we're going to be seeing plenty of Mystique in the film.
Absolutely. So here we're dusting off Cerebro.
Which is interesting because at the end of First Class, he had just opened the mansion. Things were looking optimistic, but now it's 10 years later since First Class in the 70s, and for some reason, Xavier has really been disillusioned, and we'll kind of find out why as a young man he got to this point.
Right. Now this scene, I can almost guarantee 100%, this is Wolverine saying, you don't believe me, let me open my mind to you, you can see that what I'm saying is the truth.
And maybe connects to the final image of the trailer.
So let's see, up next we have a little bit more of this where he's looking in a reflection or looking at in a mirror at himself.
And we got the gray temples, by the way, which we should mention, which was from the Days of Future Past story. Wolverine, he ages extremely slowly, but yes, he eventually gets some gray in his hair.
And in the comic book, it's, I believe, Rachel Summers who sends Kitty Pryde back.
It is, and it's interesting because there are female hands there. And so even though we're guessing it's Professor X who will take the Rachel role of being the psychic who can do this, those female hands indicate that someone else is involved, obviously. We're guessing this is when they send Wolverine back into his past self. Who is that? What's that energy? There's a lot of different possibilities. I've heard, again, maybe that Kitty is involved in some way, even though they're not sending her back in time. But that doesn't seem like Kitty's power. So
it doesn't. And the only other girl we've seen in this trailer who fits that description is Blink, who has a teleportation ability, but she, I don't think, would be used in this role.
But possibly, maybe they'll twist how she teleports,
Could be.
Maybe like Ilyana Rasputin, the space and time thing.
So we see things start to go bad here at that setting that Wolverine and Storm and Professor X and Magneto were at.
Right. Maybe that's Colossus.
Maybe
actually,
this is Colossus. That's what I was thinking.
It actually does look like it might be Colossus.
And one of the great things we should mention about this sort of time-traveling, continuity-breaking storyline is it allows them to do some things with characters that they wouldn't normally be able to do because of the importance of the franchise. But the future part in Days of Future Past is pretty grim.
Yeah.
And things go very, very badly for a lot of the heroes. So it's nice to see that this sort of like the drama and gravitas of the moment here in some of the sequences we're seeing.
And it's easy to guess that some of the people who aren't in this movie, like Nightcrawler and Beast, could just be listed as killed, at this point.
Well, yeah, there's one point in early on in the comic where Kitty Pryde walks past this row of tombstones with all these famous heroes on it.
And here's Jennifer Lawrence out of makeup, which, again, you have to kind of acknowledge the fact that Jennifer Lawrence being just this huge, beloved, Academy Award-winning star, they're going to want to get her out of the blue makeup. Yes, she accepted her true self at the end of the first movie, but still, she'll have to go undercover sometimes.
Sure.
Why not look the way she used to look?
Absolutely. And that's something we should mention is, she could be any one of these other actors that we're looking at here.
We also got some glimpses at the Oval Office there. We're speculating. It's hard not to guess that with Senator Kelly not a factor, since they already used him in the first X-Men, we do know President Nixon is in this movie. It's probably going to be, we're guessing, they're trying to that's who the assassination attempt, maybe the Brotherhood is trying to kill the president.
Yeah, and we also see Bolivar Trask in this, played by Peter Dinklage, which was a great surprise for a lot of us. But he's in this sequence as well, where you see the political figures sort of being ushered into this room. There he is there in the lower left corner, being put in this kind of safe area.
Yep.
Not quite sure who these guys are, taking shots at Wolverine here. This could just be sort of random encounter as he comes back into the past.
Because we have to establish, what he was doing at this point in the 70s in his many travels.
Things going wrong for Cerebro there. Now, is this him? Is this somebody breaking Magneto out of jail? I can't tell what this is.
Yeah, that is a good question. There have been some other photos, I believe, of Magneto in this sort of museum of mementos from First Class, including his helmet, the one he got from Shaw. And I wonder if this is connected to that sequence.
Quite possibly. And you see sort of this shot right before that glass coming down on
in
Professor X with Cerebro.
Again, with Beast and Wolverine flanking.
Could just be a thematic cut, but the scenes could be narratively related as well. So here we see Bobby Drake and Rogue running away with Magneto.
Yeah, so that we get that quick glimpse of Rogue at the beginning, but she is involved at least a little more. I wondered if she's just in that one little sequence, but something happens here where it seems like she needs help.
She's either incapacitated, maybe from a battle, or maybe she's part of this psychic transference of Wolverine back into the past. And
right, because last we saw her, she had no powers, but if Magneto was getting his powers back, who's to say she didn't get hers back as well?
Maybe she steals Professor X's powers and then transfers Wolverine back in time, and now she's weakened from that. So a lot of speculation here, but informed speculation, I would say. So what do you make of this? All these red flags with the yellow star on them.
Again, I think we're gonna. It's set firmly in the 70s. This next shot after shows President Nixon. And so I think we'll probably kind of go into all of the Nixon, China, all of what was going on politically at the time. Like First Class involved the missile crisis.
Right.
This will kind of put us into that era, but involve the mutants in it as well.
It's nice to see sort of the intersection of these heroes and sort of that whole conceit with real world history. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm curious if the next one will be the 80s, if they're going to keep this jump ahead.
So this is interesting. We've seen some of this before, right? This fight between Magneto and Beast?
Yeah, there were a lot of sort of paparazzi photos taken, because this was out in a public place, of Beast having a fight out in public with Magneto. And again, here he is back in his furry form, so we're not quite sure. Is this a physical transformation? Does he have something to make him look human at some point?
Maybe he's upset by this transformation.
Right, maybe this is what turns him back into the beastly form he did not want to accept.
So here we see Bolivar Trask testifying before some politicians, could be like a Senate committee or something, and that's kind of the big showdown in the comic book continuity, is the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants breaks into the Senate while Robert Kelly is sort of haranguing the Senate to pass this Mutant Registration Act. And here it looks like, since Robert Kelly's dead in the original trilogy, they've sort of moved some of those responsibilities onto Peter Dinklage here as Bolivar Trask.
Rocking a 70s stash, love it. And of course, it's no secret, it's been talked about, Singer has tweeted photos that the Sentinels are in this film. Trask is the creator of Sentinels in the comics, so again, we'll see. And they've already done all those viral videos even about the Sentinels, so we'll see, do we get the Sentinels in the 70s only, in the future only, or both? Do we see versions? I'm wondering if they'll be like the prototypes we'll see in the 70s and then sort of the big suckers in the future.
There was that great moment in X-Men 2 in the Danger Room, where they had a sequence where...
in the third one.
Or the third one, where Colossus does the fastball special with Wolverine, and then the Sentinel's head comes down. And a lot of those visuals reminded me a lot of Days of Future Past, so I'm excited to see a full movie be made out of that now.
Yep.
So here's Storm. Mystique's fighting. Who's she fighting here in the White House?
Yeah, it's hard to see. I'm guessing just maybe some A's, some guards. But Singer did say he was doing those He was answering questions on Twitter the other day, and he talked about how we will definitely see the evolved Mystique, the kind of ass-kicking Mystique in this movie. And we saw her as a young girl in First Class. We know her as the older Rebecca Romijn Mystique, and this will show that transition in this film 10 years later.
Very cool. We get another look here at Blink. And then the old Xavier.
And Wolverine doing what he does best.
Now, I'm not quite sure what to make of this. Like, what's the emotional or plot content of this scene?
This is a really difficult one, right? Because last we knew, Mystique was with Magneto. But she seems in duress here. It seems like he is pulling her towards her, and this is something bad's going on. So there are a lot of questions about it. People are also asking, how is he doing this? I will say in the comics, he can control, even the sort of magnetic
like iron in your blood.
Iron in your
right?
blood.
Yeah.
Although some people have said maybe her hands are shackled and we can't see it. But again, why does it seem like she does not want this to happen? It does not seem like she is happy about this.
Yeah. And here's a shot of the older Magneto here,
yeah,
just looking badass.
Yes, indeed.
And things start to go horribly wrong. As I said, Days of Future Past is a pretty grim timeline for the future X-Men, so I wouldn't be surprised if the story ended poorly for a lot of the people here. And then, surprise, surprise,
we get our 2 Professor X's. And yeah, I mean, this movie is not the team-up between the 2 teams, clearly. Wolverine is the one character that is in both timelines. But again, you were surmising earlier that when we see young Professor X touching Wolverine's head, that this is when he's going to say, I'll show you, that I'm guessing maybe this follows that, and that this is a way that psychically they are able to communicate, the 2 Professor X's. And I think this is probably the one scene in the movie that has that, crossing time where the two different versions of characters get to talk to each other like that.
That's a really great theory. I bet you're 100% right on that. He says, we need you to hope again. And
yeah.
For me, I have tremendous hope in this movie right now.
Yeah, I am very, very excited. That is not a pun with X, but I can't wait to see this movie.
Fantastic. Well, for more on that and all things comic book related, please keep it locked here at IGN.